Hey, it's Nicole from outerinnerspace, and this video is about Virgo energy and ESP, so how extrasensory perception can manifest for Virgo energy. So you can watch this if you have any Virgo placements, wherever Virgo is in your natal chart, or for 6th house energy. We all have an expression of Virgo somewhere in our chart, and the idea of this series on ESP is to show how it can be expressed through the different lens of the zodiac signs and the houses, so that you can overlay the different aspects and understand kind of the full scope, in the sense that we have all the expressions of the zodiac, and the way ESP works is that it overlays, and so there will be something in each video for all of you, because we are made up of all these energies. And I feel that everybody has extrasensory perception in one way or another, and very likely in multiple ways, but it's something that isn't talked about, and it's something that isn't standard in our regular life, and for a lot of us anyway. And I think this causes great detriment to our spirit and our operating system, and it can lead to things like anxiety and depression, and a sense of not belonging, or feeling misunderstood, or feeling out of alignment, because these really subtle senses and these really subtle perceptions that we are getting all day and in the night as well, they make up such a huge part of our experience. But because they are so subtle, and because there's no credence really put on them in our regular daily lives, we don't trust them, and we kind of think that it's nothing, or that because it doesn't line up with our 3D reality, then it doesn't fit. But the idea of this series is just to normalize it, in a sense that everybody is dealing with this kind of thing, and you would know it for yourself already in some ways, like whether you get overlays or thought downloads and complete packages of information in an instant. These kinds of things are extrasensory perception, and so my hope is that throughout this series you kind of can pick and pull the parts that make sense to you, and start to lean into how it manifests for you, and develop that relationship so that you can enhance your experience and refine your field, in a sense. With Virgo energy, it has a lot to do with perception, and because it has that Mercury influence, and because it's mutable Earth, there is a sense of being able to envision ideas and concepts and materialize them through concentration and through refinement. And I talk about this a bit more in the Mercury chart ruler Virgo rising video that I did in the chart ruler series, so you might like to watch that as well, just to get more of an idea of Virgo energy. But with this acute ability to see things, it's those details that no one else notices, and piecing these together and making deductions, cutting out what doesn't work. This kind of thing is the perceptual ability of Virgo. And in that, combined with the fact that Virgo energy is relative to the nervous system, how extrasensory perception manifests is that because the nervous system is like an electrical grid, it is picking up so much data from the environment, really unconsciously at first. It's like a kinesthetic awareness, in a sense. Your body is receiving information. And I talk about this more in the ESP notes. And the first part, Body as an Antenna, is really worth reading, and that part's free, and I'll link that below. But with Virgo energy, being out in the field, picking up all this data, it's like this really fast-moving mental energy of then discerning what that information is, and picking up patterns and working out how it's going to work for you, and how this affects you, and all that kind of thing. And this is really important for extrasensory perception, because these grids that come through the messages that go from the gut to the brain and then to all the other parts of the organs of the body, it's this field of awareness around you. And when we're little and we are so sensitive to what is going on in our environment, we absorb so much information, and then the stuff that is beyond our comprehension to process, that gets stored in the body and in the field. And then when we grow up, we have these established thought structures and beliefs which stay there until we're at a point where we can consciously understand what was our energy and what was somebody else's energy. But if we continue operating without that level of reflection and introspection as to what is ours and what is not ours, then those beliefs create this wave in the field, a blockage or a filter through which we see the world, and then we are filtering that data that we get from the field through those original discordant energies. And this is important when it comes to extrasensory perception, because some of the information that you receive from the field activates this part of you, and that is what is kind of being invited for you to have a look at and work through or work on, doing body work and doing breath work and applying that Virgo element of editing and refining and seeing what is actually in resonance with your authentic vibration. And a lot of this stuff, it really, even though there is that mercurial influence with Virgo energy, it's operating on a very natural and sort of unconscious level in a way because of that gut awareness. So it's like using your whole body, your whole field as the mind. And I'm coming to realize that the mind isn't the brain, it is the whole field. And that really comes into play with Virgo energy. I'll just read this quote by Dr. Gabor Mate. And it says, the gut sends many more messages to the brain than the brain sends to the gut, because the gut is a sensory organ. It's not just an organ of digestion, it's very much an emotional organ. When the brain is reading the environment, the unconscious messages about what's going on go to the gut, and the gut magnifies those messages and sends them up to the brain, and those are your gut feelings. So when you're ignoring your gut feelings, you're ignoring your whole brain's take on the situation. But what usually happens is you have a gut feeling, but you think your way out of it. In other words, you pay more attention to your intellect than your gut. The gut will be right 100% of the time. The intellect will be wrong 100% of the time whenever there's a conflict. The gut takes in the whole picture. So this is kind of what I mean about thinking beyond the fact that Mercury and the mind has to do with the brain and logic. It has to do with messaging, and your body is an antenna, and so the scope of extrasensory perception, it goes way beyond logic, like it's extrasensory perception. And so it's about using the whole field and your whole field of awareness and noticing the sensations that are way more subtle than just what you reactively think, because quite often those reactive thoughts have to do with those structures that we've built, these thought forms that were created from those early childhood experiences where we're told certain things, or what we come to learn about the world as we're growing up. But when we kind of understand that it's not just what we see as reality, it doesn't have to even be going like into the etheric in this sense, is that the reality is your body is having physiological responses to certain things. That's a reality. And those data input senses that you're getting, that's true too. So it's kind of about paying attention to those sensory input feelings and sensations and using the whole brain. So that's why with Virgo energy, it really is important to eat a clean diet and take care of how your body is reacting to certain foods, and you're digesting not just food but the environment. And if you're all clogged up or eating low vibrational food, that's going to affect the way that your gut is communicating to the brain. One really wonderful thing that you can do in order to kind of neutralize your energy and calibrate to these senses is to be out in nature. And the reason that this is so fundamental for Virgo energy, and for a lot of us as standard, but specifically because of that mutable earth, is that the frequency that is being emitted from plants and from the ground, and just from the sounds of birds and cicadas and those kinds of things, is that it is neutral and it's not in any way discordant to what is your true authentic frequency. And so being out in nature and stepping out of the logic and the analytics and literally just observing the colors and the light through the leaves and tuning to the bird sounds and these natural elements, this is going to calibrate Virgo energy. It's going to calibrate the natural essence of you to a point where you're stepping out of the high beta waves of trying to figure things out into a frequency that is allowing your vessel to return to the form it was before it was imprinted with all these ideas, before your gut felt like it had to kind of defend and filter in a sense. And stepping into these moments, regular daily practices of doing this, it helps you refine your field. And then when you go out into the world and you get these gut feelings, it's really fine-tuned, and then you're able to pick up so much more data from the environment, and you know what's yours and what's not yours, and what's a trigger and why that trigger is important for you to witness at this time, these kinds of things. And then with the Virgo Pisces axis, it's such a healing axis, and so noting your cellular response, your physiological activations, and then going into that Pisces realm of impressions and overlays and imaginations, and synthesizing the axis and applying that understanding and intuitive knowing to the situation that is being activated, and that neutralizes it. And when we practice clearing our energy by doing this, and it's not that the activation or the original story ever completely dissolves, but the reactivity around it does dissolve. And then you kind of notice that when you go out in the field, those triggers don't impact you, and those filters start to clear, and then your whole scope of perception sort of starts to open. And this is the axis of Pisces and Virgo, is that reality is a matter of perception. And so you can sort of start to see this whole new layer of reality where you're seeing full stories about why a person behaves in a certain way, or what's the best strategy to get to where you want, these full thought downloads that are really Uranian in a sense, that are like direct input from a cosmic order. And that's the Virgo Pisces axis again of perception and using imagination. Like Nikola Tesla, he used to imagine his full inventions in his imagination before he even constructed them, and so he wasted less products and materials because it was all edited in his mind's eye. This is the kind of thing that we're working with this Virgo Pisces axis. And not just that, but the enhancement that it brings to your state of being and to your field, it just ripples out into the cosmos, and then you become like a healing entity just by being. And that is incredibly powerful, and that's kind of how your extrasensory perception can work for you. It's something that is our responsibility to tune independently, but it's not just about individual gains, it's about what it means for everyone. And that's kind of like that 6th house Virgo energy of being of service. By taking care of your body, your vessel, your energy output, and your perception of the world, then you literally can shift the material realm because of the way that you are using the mind and the way that you are operating out in the world. And that's such a huge thing, and that's how extrasensory perception can kind of come into play into enhancing your reality. So I'm going to leave this video here, but do have a look at the Body as an Antenna notes, which are free, and it's linked below. And also the Virgo chart ruler video that I did, I'll link at the end of this video. There's a lot of other information about Virgo energy, and it is worth watching the other videos in this series to get a more comprehensive view of how ESP can manifest for you. So I hope you found some value in this, and I wish you well.